Good morning, and let's continue with the introduction to the 21st century literacies, expanded views of literacy. So my name is Raven Eitzel Cabanizas Havas, BS Ed Social Studies 3A. So before that, we will have an icebreaker game. So this is called the Giver's Challenge. So you will guess the given word or the given phrase in 8 seconds. So of course, you can stop this recording if you want some more time to guess the given word or the phrases. So let's start. So the first one, this is visual language. This is visual literacy. Language of flower. New literacies. Increased reach. And lastly, the 21st century. So with all these words and phrases, you need to remember that as we go with the topic itself. So let's start with the introduction. So I have learning objectives, the Victorian era, the language of flower, of course the main topic of the Victorian era, the new literacy, and of course the three things that increase reach, increase means communication, increase breadth of content. So this will be discussed further as we tackle the topics. So, in our learning objective, we should know or to know how communication was important in a specific country. Second is to distinguish what are the different presentation of language of flowers. And lastly, to learn that three things have been critical in the rise of the new literacy. Proceed to the Victorian era. So, in Victorian era, there was such a thing as the language of flowers. The Victorian era ushered in a time of proper etiquette among the upper class in England during Queen Victoria's reign. So, in Victorian era, going back to the history, they used the language of flower as a communication. So, according to Greenway 1884, she said that language of flowers were the kind, color, and arrangement of a bouquet of flowers were used to communicate messages that could not otherwise be spoken aloud in Victorian society. So in a Victorian society, they did not use the proper, the way of speaking aloud, but they used the language of flowers in communicating. Of course, there are some examples of language of flowers in the Victorian era. So first one is the bouquet of oak leaves that represent strength. Next one is the purple roses that represent sorrow. And white lilies represent resurrection. Of course, we also have pale yellow tulips that represent memory. And lastly, the rosemary that represent remembrance. So these are the given examples in the Victorian era. So they use this different kind of flowers as a communication to their society. Of course, we will proceed to the new literacy. Successfully interpreting those, visual language required a lot of visual literacy. Of course, almost in the Victorian society, they use almost visual literacy to understand or to how to communicate with others, message of being presented, and to manage the information coded. In here, the difference is that now we are not analyzing smoke signals or bouquets, but rather, sounds, text, and image from a different sources at a nearly non-stop rate to the point accuracy, validity, and reliability of the message we interpret from the basis for some very important personal and collective decision making. So we are not only relying on those different different flowers or smoke signals, but as in 21st century literacy, of course, we should be relying on the new technologies as we will mention here, the new literacy. Of course, there are some involved questions of necessity. So, one does not need to be literate in the language of flowers. So, in the 21st century literacy, we do not need to be literate with the language of flower to live a fruitful and fulfilled life like the Victorian era England. But to be not media or digitally literate in the 21st century makes one weak to manage by those who are, and such manipulation can easily cost an individual time, money, property, and even life. So, in in here, new literacy is very important because if we do not know or how to cope up with the 21st century literacy, of course we will be manipulated by others, and it can costly cost a lot to individual time, money, and property, and mostly even our life. So, new literacy arose from the increasing of communication technologies that were unavailable to the average individual. So, also, according to Lancashire and Nobel 2003, described that new literacy are those mediated by new information and communication technologies. So, as we mentioned, and I already mentioned that we are involving technology as well as literacies that employ more conventional tools and forms of text. So new literacy include what? We have different platforms such as web blogs, console games, instant messaging, and chatting online to name a few. So there are different platforms to cope up with the new literacy that which we say communication technology. So, as Isel mentioned that the new literacy are not new, as in the sense that they never existed before, rather, we consider them to be new because the context in which old skills and knowledge are being employed are new. So that is the main definition of the new literacy nowadays. So we have that for different platforms such as blogging and vlogging with the new literacy. And of course, we will tackle the three things. Simply put, three things have been critical in the rise of the new literacy. So of course, we have the increased reach. We are communicating with more people and of course different languages. Different cultures across vaster distance than ever before. So it is widely spreading through different cultures, and also increased means of communication. We are communicating in more ways and faster than ever before, and more faster to increase breadth of content. So we are communicating about more than ever before. So those are the three things that has been critical in the rise of the new literacy. So of course, with regarding the three things, with the rise of the new literacy, of course, there are some questions that can be asked. So in here, there are different kinds of questions. So first, how do we work together with people of different cultures? As I mentioned a while ago, we are communicating with more people. So it will be mentioned we have different cultures. So how do we work together with people of different culture who might have vastly different perspective on communication, work, ethics, values, religious beliefs, and worldviews? So that is the first question. So the second question is, what do we do when some of this might be mutually exclusive to our own? So how, if this is only exclusive to some countries like that, some cultures. So that was the second question. So next is, how do we leverage or control both current and emergent technologies so that our efforts are both productive and profitable? And moreover, how do we navigate and manage the vertible minefield of information that was once considered offensive, of course, now in the world where private and now is online for all the world to see and to judge. So whether we like it or not, it is in technology. So how do we navigate and manage? So those are the questions that may be connected to the three things in the rise of the new literacy. Of course, we have answers to that complex question. So this requires new sets of skills and knowledge. So we are required not only to make sense of the changes, but also to use this technology and paradigms in meaningful and productive ways. So as a teacher and as a student, we should be coping up, and we are required not only to make sense of the changes, but also to be more familiarized with the new literacy nowadays. So that would be the answer to those questions. So that has been my discussion with the three things and with the Victorian society in the language of flowers. I am Raven Isel Hoves, BSL Social Studies 3A. And that concludes my report.